Well, the big news that came out this week was something we talked about in the last episode was where is DeAndre Hopkins going to go? We talked about he wants to go to a contender. He should be ring chasing because he's already in I think we both agreed a Hall of Fame wide receiver, but he doesn't have that Super Bowl ring yet. And that's a lot of weight when it comes to getting into the Hall of Fame. And so we said maybe he should go somewhere where he could definitely get a ring. Figured the Chiefs, maybe the Bills. And he had said, I want to go to a competitor. I'm going to go somewhere where we're going to be competitive. We're going to win. We're going to get a ring. And Patriots got thrown out there because him and Belichick have a good relationship. Didn't end up there. Didn't end up in Kansas City with Mahomes. Didn't end up in Buffalo. He ended up in Tennessee, which was a name that was tied to him for a while. But after he said that competitor thing, people were like, maybe not there because they don't really have a team right now. They got Ryan Tannehill, who might get benched for Malik Willis, who also might get benched for Will Levis. He doesn't even know who's going to be throwing to him. But that's where veteran quarterbacks go to die, as we will talk about later. What was the contract?
So D-Hop's contract is a 2-year, $26 million deal with the chance for up to $32 million, but it's over the course of the 2 years. So he can get an extra $3 million in bonus money for each of the 2 years based on receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. So I don't know what kind of milestone he has to hit. I'm guessing like receptions, maybe like I'm assuming for like receiving yards is probably like 1,000 or something, like maybe 500 to 1,000. Same with touchdowns, maybe like 5 to 10 touchdowns. I have no idea how many like catches, but he can get up to $3 million extra per year. So it could be a maximum contract of $32 million. I don't think it's a terrible deal, but I definitely question D-Hop's move going to Tennessee, just because, not that Tennessee isn't bad, but I definitely think they're in a lot bigger of shambles than they have in the past because they don't know what quarterback they're going to run with. Granted, Ryan Tannehill, he was the guy in charge whenever Derrick Henry went on that rampage and they went to the AFC Championship that one year, and like that's great, but like in the end they might either replace him with, as you said, either Malik Willis or even Will Levis, who they drafted just this year. And it's kind of, it was almost a situation of, even the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. You had Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, and then Mitch got benched for Kenny, and then Kenny would get hurt and Mitch would go back in. And it was just like a back and forth thing. I mean, granted, it wasn't as bad as, the Jets trying to figure out what the heck they were doing with Zach Wilson and White and all those guys over in New York, but like that, we might have a little bit of another quarterback carousel going on in Tennessee, and D-Hop's just going to be thrown right into the middle of it. And personally, I don't think it's a great idea if D-Hop's trying to go to a contender, but I think it's risky for him. It's a great move for the Titans because, bringing on DeAndre Hopkins, bringing on like a star wide receiver is just good in itself for publicity, but we'll see.
So I've got two things. I don't know. I can't remember what A.J. Brown's contract looks like. But to me, it's a little weird that they traded A.J. Brown to the Eagles.
Yes.
Who was young. He was a 2019 rookie, I believe. And then I believe they used that draft pick that they got for A.J. Brown on Treylon Burks, who is a wide receiver. And now they've brought in DeAndre Hopkins. Imagine if they had kept A.J. Brown and DeAndre Hopkins. That'd be a much better team. Is it a 2-year? It's a 2-year deal?
Yeah, it's a 2-year deal. 26 to 13 a year. 13 mil.
If he plays through his 2-year deal, then I think Ryan Tannehill is a free agent next year, which means next year, who knows? This year, it's questionable who it's going to be, and Ryan Tannehill's slated to play. Next year, it could be some random dude. They could draft another guy. They've drafted 2 quarterbacks in the last 2 drafts now. They've drafted Malik Willis last year. They drafted Will Levis this year. Other point, the reason I said this is where wide receivers go to die, It's not necessarily the last team that they played for, but Randy Moss played for the Titans. Not a lot of people remember that or know that. He was 33 years old when he was on the Titans. He had a short season with Tennessee. He got there about halfway when Minnesota. I think they either traded him or they cut. I don't think they cut him. But anyway, he got under 100 yards. He was injured, but this is Randy Moss we're talking about, arguably the greatest wide receiver to ever play the game, under 100 yards in a Tennessee Titans jersey. Then we go to Andre Johnson, 35 years old when he was there, 85 yards in 8 games the entire season. Another guy who is likely going to be a Hall of Famer, I think. Maybe not a first ballot, but I think he'll sneak his way in there. Julio Jones played for the Titans. It wasn't his final team. He only got 434 yards and 1 touchdown in 10 games. D-Hop is 31. We don't know how many yards he's going to get, how many touchdowns. He just signed there.
Yeah.
What is it about Tennessee and getting these Hall of Fame wide receivers at the end of their career? I wonder.
Do you know when this is something so unrelated, but I just thought of this. Do you happen to know what year Randy Moss went to the Titans? I mean, it's probably not what I'm thinking because I feel like he was
I looked at.
I don't even want to guess.
It was I think it was in 2010, and he played for 3 teams in 2010.
So the Titans was one of them.
He played for Minnesota for 4 games, then he went to New England and then for 4 games, and then he ended up in Tennessee for 8 games.
So the reason I say that is because in 2008, the Tennessee Titans made the worst mistake of their franchise lives and started wiping the terrible towel with their sneakers, and they became crap after that. And they always called it the terrible towel curse.
So that's why they're getting all these Hall of Fame wide receivers.
Well, that's why I feel like it's because it happened in 2008. Happened like towards the end of 2008, when the Tennessee Titans, they did their good old like this, started blowing their nose with it. Next thing you know, they just start sucking air. So, and since like that Derrick Henry era, they haven't even been anywhere close. But with the Titans, the reason I just said that is just because it was 2010. It was like pretty fresh that happened. It took a while, but they finally apologized. It was kind of funny, but I don't even know. There's a lot of weird Pittsburgh stories that you wouldn't probably know. It's like knowing Cincinnati stories, but like apparently at one point they like apologized and like sent a bunch of money to like Pittsburgh charities. I don't really remember the whole story, but it was really funny because they just wanted the curse to be released because it sucked.
I mean, do you view the Titans as a contender now with D-Hop?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't really see them changing at all. I mean, it's like it was back in. It's like the same thing with like some of these wide receivers or just players that they get. I don't think that like gaining, Randy Moss in 2010. I don't think that really would have changed how their season would have went. Like they're like, oh, we brought on Randy Moss. It's like, whoa. It's like, okay, yeah, well, Randy Moss is just got done playing with New England for a couple games and Minnesota for a couple games. Like it ain't that special. So, but with D-Hop, like he went from Houston to Arizona to here, and that's cool. But I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it makes them a contender because I don't think they're going to know who's throwing him the ball.
Well, I don't even think they'll win the South personally because the
Absolutely
Jaguars,
not.
Jaguars are still in there. I think the Jaguars have the South unless Anthony Richardson is a G, and I don't think he is.
I think if AR does blow up, and I've always said this, I hope he proves me wrong, but I think the only way AR is going to blow up is once they have a complete offense. I don't think they have a complete offense yet. I think they're still missing a couple pieces. I think maybe, their line might need a little bit of help. I don't even know who their running back is off the top of my head.
Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, shoot. You're right. Jonathan Taylor is. I guess. I don't know. The Indianapolis Colts for me are just a very forgettable team. So unless something like really changes, it's just. Listen, buddy, he also gets hurt 95% of the time. So it's not. I don't draft him in fantasy. I don't do anything with Jonathan Taylor. I kind of just overlook him completely because He's the same thing with freaking when I was harassing you about Joe Mixon, I'm like, just wait until he gets hurt week 6.
Oh,
It's
you mean the guy who took a pay cut so that we can pay our boys on defense and
yeah,
T. Higgins?
yeah. You were telling me that Joe Burrow was going to take a pay
Joe
cut.
Burrow's going to do it too. Technically, he did. He let us pick up his 5th-year option, which is definitely cheaper this year than what we're going to have to pay him next year.
Yeah, and you don't. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Joe Burrow is going to stay in Cincinnati. I don't think he's going to go anywhere else. I don't want you to be like, oh, yeah, he's not going to get the money he deserves in Cincinnati. Like, he's going to stay, but I think he's going to get what he wants. I don't think he's going to get a cut. I think it's going to be like, like a high salary,
No one is doubting whether Joe will stay in Cincinnati. It's whether T and Chase can stay in Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's more or less.
But
I think there's a chance that you can keep Chase and Burrow, but I don't think you guys are going to be able to keep T, unfortunately. Just because.
Watch.
I'm just saying, if you have Joe Burrow on such a high contract and then you have to sign Jamar Chase, arguably one of the best receivers in the league right now, to like mega extensions, like there's not a chance you're going to be able to get T. Higgins. And that's not a bad thing. It's just you'll just have an opportunity to draft another wide receiver,
If you're new to the show, this is the part of the show where we randomly get off topic while I'm trying to manifest Bengals players' contracts. So we're going to end this portion of the show and go back to DeAndre Hopkins. Bill O'Brien, he was the coach for the Houston Texans when DeAndre Hopkins was there, and now he is the offensive coordinator in New England. Do you think that maybe had something to do with him not wanting to play in New England? Maybe he was like, nah, I've dealt with this guy before. We are not doing this again. I'm out of here.
Yes. And the reason I say that is just because at the time with Houston, I feel like they all kind of left, or they all were trying to leave at once. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but like after everything like kind of started crumbling, it was like D-Hop wanted out, JJ wanted out, and, Deshaun, they all wanted out, like almost immediately.
JJ's a big one because
I never thought I would see
JJ's a team guy.
Well, yeah, and I never thought I'd see the day that JJ Watt would walk out of the freaking Houston Texans because he set up like charity funds and all that stuff down in the city of Houston. Mm-hmm. Like he was big down there. Just for him to hightail it to Arizona was insane to me. But I think there was a lot more than just some team problems. I think there was a lot of issues that were going on behind closed doors. I think there's a culture issue down in Houston. But
I mean, I don't know what their owner's doing, but that's a whole nother episode.
But I think D-Hop, in my opinion, wanted to stay away from New England just because it's almost like old roots, and it's like, yes, I know the guy, but like I don't really, if he wants to stay away from that type of culture, he wouldn't want to go back to his old roots,
It could be that he knows the guy, and that's why he.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think the reason was for not going to the Chiefs or the Bills? I mean, I love that he didn't because that helps the Bengals.
Well, yeah.
Out,
I mean, it.
I sincerely thought he was going to end up on the Chiefs.
I thought it was going to be the Chiefs or the Bills. I really did. I mean, I think it might just come down to money. I mean, the Chiefs, the problem with the Chiefs, though, is like they're a very interesting franchise just because they'll sign these random guys and Patrick Mahomes will just make them look good. Just kind of like a Tom Brady almost, like who was Chris Hogan before Tom Brady? Nobody. Right. But like, right. But like the point is I think Patrick Mahomes, I think with Kansas City, I think they've just realized that they don't need like superstars to win. They can just win with whoever they can. Because like I said, last year's Super Bowl, like it wasn't that exciting of a win. They had the most random like rookie and second year players that I've ever heard of in my life. And I'm like, who are these players? But they won. And I'm like, great, that's awesome. 7th
round pick, Isaiah Pacheco. Running back,
and he's
with a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Did he get 1,000 yards rushing?
I don't know, but I know that he was really good because if you watched him play for his like, he's not a huge he's not a huge guy, but for the player that he is, he's a tank. He's a little tank.
I don't know if he's a tank or if he's just so like he's just slippery.
Elusive. He
Yeah.
might be elusive.
So he played 17 games and he got 830 rushing yards as a rookie with 5 touchdowns, which is pretty decent considering they like to pass the ball and the
Yeah,
Chiefs do whatever they want. But yeah, I thought for sure he was going there. I'm glad that he didn't. Bills would have been
Buffalo.
dangerous as well.
It was either that like they're content with their teams, or maybe it had cap issues, or they were only going to be willing to sign them to like a 1 year $8 million contract, and it looks like it was a 2 year up in Tennessee, and I don't know. It's maybe there was a lot more behind closed doors. If I don't, was he ever even tied to either of those teams?
He was tied to the Chiefs a lot, and then people just assumed Buffalo because they're always in the Super Bowl talk, which is fair. But I I don't understand. I mean, I get he loves the game, but he's 31, which is getting up there for a receiver. I would say if I mean, I'm not DeAndre Hopkins, but I would think if you have a 1 year deal and you're like, we're going to go win a Super Bowl, I would retire on winning the Super Bowl. I wouldn't just play another year after that, I wouldn't think, and risk injury.
Yeah,
If all I'm doing is ring chasing, I'd get that ring and be like, okay, let's go.
yeah.
Maybe he'd want to run it back, but I don't